Hello again. The High Court sitting in Pretoria has heard that the vehicle transporting Bongani Ntanzi only stopped about 3 kilometers away from the dumping site along Heidelberg Road on the day before he made the alleged confession statement. This is contrary to his version that they made a stop at the dumping site. The dumping area is among the locations where he claimed to be assaulted. We take a look at the testimony of the so-called AVL expert, Mr. Dupriya. Now we are joined by Newzroom Afrika's Mnisi, as well as Legal Eagle, Mr. Melusi Xulu. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time this afternoon. Mnisi, let's start with you. Maybe let's deal with this or some definitions before we get into the conversation, because we heard at some stops this concept of GPS unlocked. What does that mean?
So you'll remember that the GPS unlocked status was touched on quite a number of times in Dupriya's testimony, and one of the things that the defense wanted to know was what exactly it means, right? And Dupriya has previously come on record to say that he does not really know what it means, but essentially there is no record during that time of the vehicle itself and where the vehicle was. And why this came under sharp focus, do you remember, is because that GPS unlocked, the first time that we heard about it was when the vehicle was approaching the entrance of the Baragwanath Hospital. You'll remember, this is one of the locations where Bongani Ntanzi said they made their stops when they were in Soweto. So it was touched on today again on what exactly it means, and does it mean that the vehicle actually entered into Baragwanath Hospital, which would then support Ntanzi's version, but the witness saying that he does not have any records that point to the fact that the vehicle, entered that particular hospital. In fact, the last time that the vehicle was spotted was before the GPS unlocked, and it was along Chris Hani Road. It then picked up again about more or less 10 minutes later, and it was still along Chris Hani Road. So it brings about questions around whether or not this vehicle actually did enter Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital, because, of course, on the AVL itself, there is no record of it being inside of that particular hospital.
Melusi Xulu, essentially, more so for the trial within the trial, the defense's version is that Sergeant Mohane, who's now this AVL, is in relation to the car that he drove, stopped at several locations, including the filling station in Alberton, Germiston at a dumping site, and Chris Hani Hospital, as well as Orlando in Soweto. Because after they dealt Mnisi with whether, more so when the judge asked whether it entered Baragwanath Hospital, he then asked whether it went to Orlando. And the AVL experts said, no, he could not pick that up. How helpful is this information that has been presented in court by the AVL expert, and to whom? The defense or the state? Whose case does it bolster?
Good afternoon to the viewers at home. Remember, the reason why the AVL is needed is to test the testimony, not the testimony per se, but what came out of the cross-examination for accused number 2 by Advocate Mbomezu. So what is important is that there must be a truth to what he said in terms of the cross-examination. But we are seeing that, unfortunately, there are some situations where they say the GPS was unlocked and the expert can't explain clearly what that means. My view is, since the expert is an expert for the state, he was brought as a witness for the state, I think it's important for the defense to also arrange their own experts so that maybe they can be able to at least explain the case the way they are saying, because there might be some things that the expert cannot explain that is needed to explain from an expertise point of view. Like, for example, Mr. Ntanzi said they went to Baragwanath, but now it's not clear whether the vehicle entered or did not enter. I saw that the judge intervened and said there was a bridge somewhere there. So I think they need to have their own expert witness to explain or clarify a few things that this witness cannot explain. That's my view. But so far, what is important in this whole thing is was Ntanzi or Mr. Sibiya assaulted? That is what is more important than anything, and they must prove on the balance of probabilities. But so far, I cannot say whether it's definite that they were assaulted or not. Maybe some evidence will come up as we proceed.
To your point, in fact, the judge also made it known to the defense that they can call their own expert. Linda Mnisi, what happened on the 18th of June at the engine garage?
You'll remember that at the engine garage, this is one of the stops that they made, and according to Bongani Ntanzi, he was assaulted just outside the engine garage next to an open field. The vehicle does indicate that it stopped at an engine garage, but what is quite interesting about that particular evidence to do, and particularly when you look at what the expert said today, he said the vehicle stopped at that particular engine garage and did not leave the garage until the following day. If you go back to Mogane's evidence, he said they had stopped there because the vehicle had broken down and they called for help, and that is why they stayed there for a number of hours. So it really then kind of gets us into what exactly could have happened, because Bongani Ntanzi says that it's one of the locations where they stopped. That's where the assault actually started happening. So it kind of paints a picture then of what could have possibly happened. Did the vehicle move? But of course, we're still under cross-examination. The witness, rather, is still under cross-examination. Perhaps that matter will be ventilated further in terms of what the court can draw from what happened there.
Outside of Mr. Xulu, outside of the defense calling their own expert, what would help the court come to that determination, as you say, to ascertain whether the suspects were coerced into making these alleged confession statements? Because if we hear from this AVL expert, as late as 22:33, the vehicle was at Freedom Park, which looks like a residential area, that you have such activity right up from the early hours of the morning right up until so late at night from the work that you do. Is that unusual?
Obviously, it is unusual how most of the vehicles might have traveled, like in the early hours and so forth. But then it also boils down to proving that you are assaulted, which is what is critical here. But I think in one of the interviews we've had, I did indicate in one of the interviews that was done by Linda, where the family members of both the accused number 2, I remember they said his father, in fact, said they promised to give him 3 million and he was assaulted, and I think he was put in the fridge. I think Linda will remember that. And accused number 1 also was promised 100,000 rand to also implicate the other accused. So beyond what is has been stated in court, I think the defense also needs to bring the family witnesses, if I put it like this, just to add on what they've been saying, that they were assaulted, because beyond how strange the movements of the vehicles were, beyond what is denied by all of the police officers, they also need to bring something on the table. And I think you guys as Newzroom have gone further than just getting the obvious things. Their family members, the fathers of the accused, in fact, they've got testimony that can be crucial to say, our sons told us that they were assaulted.
How helpful will that be, right? Because more so if it is a family member, how helpful will that be to the court? If you're a family member, no doubt you'd want the best for your own.
Remember, you could correct me if I'm wrong in this one. I think both of the accused were brought from Johannesburg to Nongoma. I cannot remember exactly what they were doing, but I think when they came there, they were told, that they were assaulted. But it would help in the sense that it's not just the accused saying, yes, it's a family member. One may say maybe they are biased, but at the end of the day, if that is what they are saying happened, then why not testify about it?
Okay, Linda Mnisi, what are we expecting come 2 p.m.?
Well, it's obviously the continuation of a cross-examination, but also, interesting takeouts from the previous sitting. The session that we just came out of now is actually one of the things around the stops at the dumping site. You'll remember it's amongst the areas where he said he was assaulted, and Advocate Mngomezulu leading the witness, cross-examining the witness around those certain points and where the dumping site is allocated, and from that point onwards then being asked, where does the vehicle stop? Is it near? Is it in the vicinity of the dumping site where he alleges that he was assaulted? And the witness clearly saying that it is actually far. And he's asked to calculate, when you say far, what exactly do you mean? And he says from his calculation it's about 3 kilometers away from where he said the incident had taken place.
Thank you very much for helping us make sense of developments at the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. Melusi Xulu is a legal analyst. Linda Mnisi, Newzroom Africa's reporter. Thank you.